What's up guys and welcome. You are watching Fazi Fitness. So let's start this video with a recent physique update from Goodvito. So that is his off-season look. And I have to say what an impressive one that is. Because he is weighing in the high 280s right now. And still holding on to such good body composition. And the good thing is, the off-season does not end here. As Vito's goal right now is to touch 300 pounds mark. Before he decides to pick a show for 2025 season. So those quads are absolutely mind-blowing. One of the best in the men's open bodybuilding right now certainly. So any improvements that Vito makes in his lower half, that from this point onwards is just a plus point, as he is already too good in that department. So the feedback that was given to Goodvito after this year's Detroit Pro, that was to add more thickness in his arms, especially from the side, because his arms look pretty damn impressive in that front double biceps, and in all of the front shots for that matter. And he was also told to bring up his back, to bring a more thicker and a more denser back. So that front double biceps, that is Goodvito's money shot, that is his best shot. And I have to say it can be argued as one of the best front double biceps in the men's open bodybuilding right now. And not just in the men's open, in that entire pro league for that matter. And also his hand collapsed most muscular. That is also really impressive. So Vito got so close to winning his Olympia qualification this year. Top 3 at his pro debut at the Arnold Brazil. And he placed top 2 in Detroit against a very good Martin Fitzwater. And keep in mind that was his last show of the season, and that was back in April. So he has been working extremely hard ever since then. So initially they had a plan to have another go at this year's Miss Olympia qualification. But him and his coach Chris Acito, they made the right call to wait till 2025 and come back better than ever and be really undeniable. So I have zero doubts that Vito is gonna win his first pro show and qualify for the Olympia next year, and we will see him on the Olympia stage in 2025. Next up is the update from Patrick Moore, whom by the way many people think was really unfairly placed at Europa Pro this year, which happened this past weekend. Now we do understand that Patrick did not have as impressive size as Bruno Santos or Andrea Presti, or did not have that grainy kind of condition like Louis Breed. But still, I think most of us agree that he deserved better than 6th place at that show. Now his conditioning was really impeccable, and that shape is one of the best in the men's open bodybuilding right now. Very classic, very aesthetic lines. I mean that front relaxed pose, that was a work of art. I'm gonna say very reminiscent of Milos Sarcev, as Milos was one of those guys who never had the size to compete against the mass monsters of 90-0. But he was one of the most aesthetic physique, and one of the most conditioned guys to enter in any of those shows. So what's next for Patrick? Did that 6th place finish kill the spirits for this year? Or will Patrick Moore come back with a redemption and compete in a few more shows before calling it a day for this season? Well, good news in that regard. He is up for another battle, and I think he is gonna do the Legion Sports, which is happening in 10 days time. And him and his coach, they are gonna try to bring a bigger and a more fuller look to the stage this time. Because a more shredded look, that absolutely did not get rewarded at this year's Europa Pro. So a lot of people are actually asking him to go back to the drawing board and come back with more size. And I have to say that does make sense. I agree with that. But the thing is, Patrick isn't a young guy anymore. If I'm not mistaken, he is either 39 or 40 years old. So that window on him is closing pretty damn fast. Hopefully he gets a better look from the judges at this year's Legion Sports. Next up is the physique update from Quinton Beastwood. So unlike previous year, where Quinton Beastwood pushed his weight beyond 330 pounds in the off-season, he has no intentions of doing that this time. Actually, he has no intentions of doing that again. Because the thing is, we did not see that much improvements, especially in terms of size, particularly at this year's New York Pro. In fact, I think most of you guys will agree that he actually looked bigger at Texas Pro 2022, which was about 2 years back, especially in comparison to what we saw at the New York Pro this year. And even Quinton himself said that. So Quinton really isn't pushing anything at this point, but still he looks pretty solid in this phase. So the world of bodybuilding has been waiting on Quinton to fulfill his true potential, to finally show up at his all-time best. I mean, his genetics are absolutely insane. One of the best in the game. He has that insane structure that matches the likes of Andrew Jack and Samson Dauda. And that is why the people would like to see him get compared with Samson and Andrew Jack. Of course, Quinton isn't there just yet, especially in terms of size. I mean, we can all agree there is still a lot of size discrepancy between him and those two guys that I just mentioned above. But on the flip side, the height, the shape and the structure, they are somewhat very similar. So if it wasn't for that 22 weeks prep for the New York Pro this year by Quinton, and then a few more weeks for Toronto Pro, Quinton might have qualified for the Olympia this year by doing Vancouver Pro, because John Jewett was the one who won Van Pro this year, and Quinton was able to beat John earlier at Toronto Pro. So I'm gonna say this, give him another offseason, and we are gonna see him on the Olympia stage in 2025. Next up is the update from Italy Pro champion from this year, Hunter LeBron. So Hunter wasted no time after his victory last weekend. Actually, his victory a couple of weeks ago. He just had a few off-plan meals after his victory there, and he was right on track the next day. And the thing is, this is what we expect from a guy who is trying to crack top 5 at this year's Miss Olympia. Because there has been a lot of doubt on Hunter, especially after he did not show up the way people expected him to at this year's Italy Pro. Because people were hoping him to walk all over the competition, just like Andrew Jacked. Or the other version is that the lighting was just so poor at that show that it made him look all soft and washed out on the stage. And it seemed like that he had no separation, especially in his lower half. But then we saw those other videos, which were taken from the cell phone, and he looked pretty damn impressive. So the idea that Hunter and his coach Ben Chow, they deliberately did not show up at 100%. I think that is plain and simple wrong. This is the age of social media, and whether anyone admits it or not, the opinion on the social media do matter to a certain extent, and they knew exactly what it meant for Hunter to show up at 100% for this show. Because the thing is, a lot of this momentum, that will take him to his 4th ever Miss Olympia in a few weeks' time. So they did try to show up at their best, and I think he wasn't that far off. He was maybe a little bit flat in his chest area, but other than that, he was pretty damn impressive. So people changing their predictions and dropping Hunter out of that top 6, that might be a mistake in my opinion. I mean, just think about it for a second. He has another 3.5 weeks from this point onwards to really dial it in. And the pictures and videos that we have seen afterwards, that gave us a totally new perspective that he actually looked really good at that show. I mean, it was a clear-cut victory for Hunter at that show. He had perfect scores. So I expect him to show up a lot better in 3.5 weeks' time for this year's Miss Olympia. And I do believe counting him out or underestimating him, that would be a huge mistake. Next up is a 3.5 weeks out physique update from Mike Sommerfield. Easily one of the biggest and the most muscular guy in classic physique division at the moment. So we have absolutely no idea how he is making that weight cutoff, especially this year. You look at his peak of season and at first glance, he looks like an open bodybuilder. He literally doubled in size. So Mike is shaping up very nicely for the Olympia as he joins his coach Neil Hill in Vegas. And he will be going through those final few weeks under the watchful eyes of his coach. So I am pretty sure that he still has to lose some muscle to make that weight. Now, if we take a look at his physique from last 2 years, the Olympia 2022, where he placed 5th, versus last year, where he dropped down to 8th, there isn't much of a difference. In fact, his arms actually looked bigger last year, and conditioning was more or less the same. So why did the judges mark him down? I just think there is so much new talent coming in, especially in classic physique, and that too every year. And from 5th onwards, it is gonna be so unpredictable. And that is gonna be the case this year as well. But Mike is really confident this time. He's challenging all those big names, like Ramon, like Vasily, like Urs. And he has a very unique shape. I have to say his front lat spread, that is just so different. And that too in a good way, especially in comparison to many other guys. So where do you guys think Mike will land at the Olympia this year? So hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video. And smash the subscribe button if you wanna come back for more. Thanks for watching.